Some say the West wasn't truly wild until Pecos Bill showed up. And if you're a skin me, I'll tell you flat out, the land made him wild, not the other way around. The night he was born, the sky cracked in two. Stars blinked. Coyotes went silent. And somewhere out near the Pecos River, a lightning bolt hit the ground and never quite apologized. That was the night little Bill came squalling into the world. Red-faced, big-fisted, and mad as a dust devil. The wagon train was crossing a rocky trail, halfway between nowhere and even farther west. And when the bump hit, bam! Baby Bill flew out the back like a jackrabbit in July. His family never even noticed. By the time they stopped to count heads, Bill had already rolled downhill, straight into history. Now most babies cry when they're cold. Bill? He growled. They say a pack of coyotes found him under a mesquite bush. Instead of eating him, they raised him, like one of their own. Taught him to sniff the wind. Taught him to howl at the moon. Taught him to chase jackrabbits and bite rattlesnakes. And let me tell ya, that boy could howl. At 2 years old, he could out-howl a pack of full-grown coyotes. By 3, he could run faster on all fours than a wildcat. And by 4, he'd licked a bobcat in a bear-fang brawl and won. Folks say his first words weren't even words, just a low growl that made cactus plants shake. Most boys learn to walk. Bill learned to ride. When he was 5, he straddled a mountain lion bareback, used a live rattlesnake as a whip and hollered like a thunderstorm. The coyotes just sat and watched, tails wagging, eyes wide. Even they hadn't seen a boy like this before. By 7, he'd tamed a herd of wild armadillos and raced them against jackrabbits for fun. He once wrestled a grizzly bear just to settle an argument about which direction was north. Everything out there feared Bill or respected him. Sometimes both. He wasn't mean, though, just wild, like the land that raised him. Eventually, Bill came across people. Real people, spurs, hats, and all. He was 10 years old, dusty from head to heel, with tumbleweed in his hair and a grin full of teeth he'd sharpened on river rocks. A cowboy saw him on the ridge and nearly fell off his saddle. What in tarnation? That's all he got out before Bill licked his lips and said, "What's that thing you're sitting on?" He'd never seen a horse. Thought it was some kind of weird deer. But oh, when Bill climbed on, that bronco bucked so high it clipped a cloud. Bill stayed on. Logan, whoopin', and ridin' that thing till it gave up and lay down from shame. The cowboys took him in after that. Figured anyone who could tame a horse like that belonged on a ranch. Now this is where the stories start stretchin' like the Rio Grande on a hot day. Some say Bill dug wells just by stomping the ground. Some say he shot the sun once 'cause it was making the cows too hot. And some say he taught prairie dogs how to dance, just to pass the time. But one thing's certain, Pecos Bill didn't fit into the West. He defined it. He was part cowboy, part coyote, part cyclone. A walking contradiction with a heart as big as Texas and a fist faster than a rattlesnake's tongue. And all of that, that was before he met his horse. Before he rode the tornado. Before the rivers twisted when they heard his lasso whistle through the sky. That comes next. Every cowboy's got a horse. But Bill? He had a problem. You see, no horse could carry him. Too big, too wild, too full of beans. Most horses took one look at Pecos Bill and laid down in the dirt out of respect. Or fear. That is, until he found the beast folks now whisper about Widowmaker. A stallion born during a lightning storm. Black as midnight. Mean as a cornered badger. They say he kicked a buzzard into the sun and made it rain feathers for a week. Bill looked that horse square in the eye. The horse snorted. Bill spat. And just like that, they understood each other. He named him Widowmaker not 'cause he liked it but because he figured it was honest. Now, it ain't enough for a legend to ride broncos or wild mustangs. No, sir. One summer, a twister rolled across Texas. Mean, swirling, tearing up barns like they were toothpicks. Bill grabbed his lasso and hollered, "Let's dance, darlin'." He leapt onto that tornado like it was a mechanical bull at a Saturday night saloon. Spurs sparkin', hat flyin'. Bill rode it straight into the sky. He looped it, whipped it, tied it in a knot and slammed it into the prairie so hard it turned into a well. Locals still call that place Whirlwind Hollow. And if you stand there at sunset, you can feel the air tug at your boots. Some folks drink coffee. Bill? He drank nitroglycerin. Once ate a plate of dynamite because regular chili didn't have enough kick. Burped, and the wind knocked over 3 wagons. One time he got bit by a rattlesnake, and after 5 minutes of agony, the snake died. Bill said, "That poor serpent just couldn't hold his whiskey. Regular lassos? Nah." Bill used a 75-foot rattlesnake, name of Shake. Tamed it like a dog. Trained it to curl, loop, and snap like a whip. With Shake coiled on his saddle, he could rope an outlaw off a cliff, lasso a cloud, or even snag a stampede in mid-run. Once, he threw his rope clean across the Grand Canyon and caught a buzzard flying the other way. Back when the West was young, rivers didn't know where to flow. They wandered, got lost, ran in circles. So Bill fixed it. He dragged his spurred boots from Colorado to the Gulf of Mexico. Each step cut a groove so deep, water followed behind him. That's how the Rio Grande was made. Some say he laughed so hard while walking that the canyon curves are just his footprints, doubled over. If you look at a map real close, you can trace his stride. Left, right, left. Big OL boot heel by El Paso. Bill didn't just fight nature. He organized it. He invented cowboy law. Always tip your hat. Never shoot at the dinner bell. And never trust a man who won't eat beans. He built the first real cowboy town, No Man's Gulch. Had a saloon that served coffee stronger than regret. A jail cell made from cacti. And a general store that sold only rope, bacon, and tall tales. Every drifter, dreamer, and daredevil rode through there. And every single one left saying the same thing. One day, Bill decided to gather every steer, bull, and longhorn west of the Mississippi. Not some, not most, all of them. He whistled once, and the ground started rumbling. Cattle came from mountains, deserts, canyons, ghost towns. Some swam across rivers. Some just walked through trees like they were fog. Bill sat up on Widowmaker, lasso in hand, rattlesnake whip curled on his hip. He spun loops wider than whole counties. The dust cloud was seen from Kansas to California. When it was done, he branded 3 million cows with just one red-hot horseshoe, tied to the moon. No one's quite sure how, but that's how legends work. Ain't it? Bill never needed nobody. Not a soul. He had Widowmaker, his rattlesnake rope, a prairie for a pillow, and a sky full of stars. But then, she rode in. Slue-Foot Sue. Hair like wildfire, eyes like Texas lightning, a voice that could hush coyotes and make wolves blush. She didn't ride a horse. She rode a catfish, a giant, river-swimming, saddle-strapped catfish. She came bounding up the Pecos like a salmon in a rodeo, water flying, fishtail flap pin, and Sue grinning like she'd invented chaos. And Bill? Well, he dropped his chili spoon. Bill'd lassoed tornadoes, ridden wildfires, and punched thunderclouds. But nothing ever knocked him over like Slue-Foot Sue's laugh. He tried to play it cool. "Howdy, ma'am," he said. She tipped her 10-gallon hat. "You call that a tornado ride, sugar? I once wrestled one underwater." The campfire popped. The coyotes howled in confusion. And Pecos Bill, he blushed. They sat up late swap-pin tall tales. Louder and louder, until the sun came up and the stars gave up trying. And that morning, Bill knew. This was the only person in the West who might just be wilder than him. So naturally, Bill proposed. Right there on top of a mesa, lightning behind him, Sue still drip pin from her catfish ride. She said yes on one condition. She wanted to ride Widowmaker. Now, I know what you're thinking. Bill should have known better. But he was in love. Blind as a rattler in July. Sue mounted up, side saddle, lipstick and all. Widowmaker kicked. Straight up. Sue bounced. Once, twice. Third time, she went higher than the mesa. Then higher than the clouds. Bill watched her rise, eyes wide, hat over heart. She bounced all the way to the moon. Bill tried everything to bring her back. He roped the stars, climbed the tallest mountain, howled her name into every canyon. built a catapult out of cacti, rode an eagle halfway up the sky, even tried lassoing the moon with Shake, his rattlesnake rope. But nothing worked. And Sue? Well, she never came down. Still up there, they say. Sittin' pretty, bouncin' gentle on the moon's silver edge. If you look close, you can see her hat glintin' under starlight. After that, Bill got quieter. Didn't ride tornadoes so much. Didn't rope rivers for fun. Just sat by the fire with Widowmaker and Shake, staring up at the night sky. The coyotes howled. He howled back. Not out of sadness, not exactly. Just a wild heart feelin' lonesome. One night, folks saw him ride off toward the horizon. Quiet as a breeze. No stampede. No showdown. Just him, his horse, and the desert wind. They say he rode into a dust storm. That the storm opened for him. That the earth whispered his name and the sky tipped its hat. And then he was gone. Gone like smoke on a campfire. Gone like the Wild West before the railroad. But every now and then, you'll hear a storm comin' through the canyons, twistin' fences and singin' real low. Sounds a lot like laughter, or a howl. Now here's the thing about legends. They don't end. They fade like sunsets and echo like old songs. But if you must know, there was one final ride. And it started with a storm. The sky turned that yellow-gray color, the kind that makes cows uneasy and makes the wind whisper things. The prairie went still. And from the distance came a sound no one forgets. Hoofbeats. But not like thunder. No, more like memory. And there he was, Pecos Bill. Older now, beard like smoke, eyes full of starlight. He didn't speak, just tipped his hat, and rode straight into the biggest, wildest storm the West ever saw. It wasn't a tornado. It was the tornado, the one all the others are born from. Spinnin' so fast it dragged thunder behind it and bent trees from Texas to Montana. Folks say Bill met it head-on. He didn't blink, just pulled out Shake, that rattlesnake lasso, and gave the sky one last whistle. And that twister paused, long enough for him to mount it again, just like the first time. And then up he went, past the clouds, past the thunder, past the moon. They say he never came down. But there's one more piece you need to know. Because when that storm curled above the moon, she saw him, Slue-Foot Sue, still sittin' pretty, still ridin' moonbeams. Her laugh floated down like rain on a dry summer. And Bill? Well, he finally caught her. One hand on the wind, one on his heart. He landed beside her on the moon. The coyotes howled. The stars twinkled. And for the first time in forever, the West went quiet. Now you won't find his name in textbooks. And no fancy statue stands in a city square. But look close. You'll see him. Every horseshoe-shaped canyon, that's where he rode. Every curve of the Rio Grande, that's his boot. Every tall tale told at sundown, that's his shadow leanin' in to listen. He's out there, in the dust devils, in the echo of boots on dry wood, in the smell of firewood and beans, the spirit of the West, of laughter, wildness, and love too big to break. So if you ever find yourself out in the open, just you, the wind, and a sky stretched wide, tip your hat, tell a tale, and smile like you've seen something bigger than the world allows. Because you have. You've heard the story of Pecos Bill, the cowboy who roped rivers, wrangled cyclones, and loved a woman who bounced to the moon. And maybe, just maybe, you'll hear hoofbeats, ridin' the storm,